Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rapid fire selection of games today to close out the weekend. Some important games at that in terms of going through to the rest of the season and the World Championship qualification spots. Kenny though, a massive performance today on the new Minnesota Rocket team to get the victory in a crazy Game 5 Round 11 fashion. Where was this Kenny? Well, it was an OpTic. That is a question that many OpTic fans are asking today, but Kenny gives his response to the situation, the possibility of not even coming back to a team at all, but eventually deciding to, and it seems to be working out for him so far in this brand new structured organization. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to start straight away with this Minnesota Rocket squad. As I pointed out this morning, this game was massively important to me and to the teams. Like, in my opinion anyway, is what I mean. It wasn't like massively important to me personally, but it was still important nonetheless. And that was Rocket versus the Boston Breach. Now today, both of the hard points from Rocket were impeccably good. Like, super impressive. Boston got slammed in both of the hard points, uncharacteristically so it must be said, and Looney afterwards on the Twitter was like, yeah, really impressive from the boys today in the hardpoint mode. They lost the search and destroy though, and then the control. I mean, Boston were really good on that rewind search map that they liked back in December. They seem to like it again now, and look, as a new team, Minnesota Rocket, they've not been around too long. It's kind of expected that maybe search and destroy could be a bit of a struggle for them, and that was one of the big questions when it came down to Kenny, right? Because Kenny comes into the team, his search is not known as his strong suit, let's say, and it was also kind of expected maybe that it wouldn't necessarily continue on this team in a positive way, given what we've seen on OpTic over the last couple of months was not exactly pretty, and search and destroy was a part of that. In the control, that's not been Boston's good mode, but they won it anyway. So Rocket needed to clutch up on a game 4. They did so absolutely in dominant fashion, and well, Kenny goes 30 and 15. We didn't see a map from Kenny all year. And this is the question, right? Because Octane said it on his stream. It was a bit of a talking point today. He was asking the question, who's the most underrated player in the league right now? And I'm sure many of you guys have your perspectives, and feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Now, I will say, usually when people say underrated players, they mention players who maybe were underrated, but now are getting credit. That's my feeling. So a guy like Estriel, for example, I think Estriel was underrated for sure. I think now he's getting his credit as a potentially good to even great potential player. So, is Estriel underrated? Sure, you can make the argument, but I'd say that he's getting a bit more credit now than he has done previously. I think, Nastie was in a similar boat, and then maybe now he's getting a bit more respect. I think you can put some of the other Surge guys into that category too. There's certainly other players that come to mind, even on Miami, that like to rank or someone like that could be in the conversation as well. I do think one of the names that was genuinely on the tip of my tongue though was Kenny, right? Because this guy was on OpTic, got absolutely slammed. Like, don't get me wrong, this guy was getting battered. And I know that it's only one series from Kenny today where he's really been back, as it were. But he had a good series the other day too when they played OpTic. He had a 0.96. Like, it wasn't his trademark 0.7s or whatever he was putting up consistently during the first couple of stages of the season for OpTic Texas. So he comes into this team, clearly things are a lot better immediately. And in my opinion, people were, when Kenny was picked up to Rocket, there was lots of thoughts to say, man, Kenny for Paul, it's not going to be any better, right? Like, he's been playing terribly, right? But I think people are overlooking the player that Kenny is and has been. Clearly, the OpTic situation was horrific, but that stint over those couple of month periods doesn't take away from the player that Kenny's been from his career, and he knows that, of course, himself. So once he's got his head right again, and it seems like he's having a great time. I think that's the key thing. It seems like Kenny is really enjoying himself playing for the Rocket with these boys right now, and I think that's critical for his future. I mean, look, is this team going to win an event? Probably not. Is Kenny going to stay on this org? Maybe not. If he keeps playing like this, he's probably going to, get an offer from a better team in the offseason. That's absolutely a possibility. But I think this may be a crucial stint for Kenny to kind of get himself back on track after what was a terrible time at OpTic. No doubt about that. Drazah says he's back right after, not only a great map from Kenny on the map 4 hardpoint, but he followed it up with a phenomenal map 5 search and destroy too. Now, look, it's not like he was dropping 15 kills. But in terms of damage output, it was actually one of the best that we've seen in the entire league this year. And eventually if they'd have lost 2 Game 5 Round 11s, one to OpTic, one to Boston, it would have been bad. Boston will be gutted as well because, this would have been such a huge win for them. If they won this series, they would have felt very comfortable. Not very, but, they'd have felt comfortable in terms of qualifying for the World Championship. And Rocket would have been concerned. This is certainly a big result in terms of keeping that World Championship qualification qualification fight as spicy as it possibly can be. And the trademark Kenny laugh is back on the menu as well after this final round of the series. So yeah, crazy series, like just insane. I think it's no real surprise. These two teams were incredibly closely matched, as I think you would expect them to be, going down to the wire in this way. But Rocker eventually get the win. Great performance from Kenny pretty much throughout the entire series. And yeah, it's one series that he's turned up for properly, but it just feels like everything is moving in Kenny's direction again. And the question that it raises to many is, what the hell was going on over there at OpTic for Kenny to look this lost on the map? Because Huke has come back in, and he's frying as well. And Kenny's now looking good on Rocker. So, you know, obviously that puts the spotlight on Pred, right? Because Pred came back in and everything was not exactly great, was it? Not to say that Pred was the problem. Like, obviously there were multiple problems, but I think, you know, Pred was got to be part of it, right? I mean, there's kind of no other explanation for it on some level anyway. So Kenny drops this season. I mean, he's played plenty of series this season. This was by far Kenny's best series of the year. His best series in terms of KD before this was a 1.04 against the Falcons. Like, that's even the old Falcons, right? So this new Kenny on Rocker, he's been on the team for 2 series, and he's already dropped by far his best series of the entire season. Not like the best series of the season, he had a 1.26, but his best. I think people were getting that a little confused. So this is the best series that he's played, and it comes 2 series into his stint on Rocker. As he says, goddamn, GG's Boston, got to clean up a bit, feeling good after the little practice that we had. And I wanted to share a couple of minutes here really of Kenny talking to Puckett and the guys on the desk about how he's been feeling, really getting back into the league, enjoying his comeback, and also thinking that maybe he didn't have to return, but he felt like it was a good idea at the moment. The Rocker guys are helping to, let's say, revitalize his energy in the team, and it's all working out for all parties at the moment.
We've been playing good in scrims, it just didn't feel good today. Our hard point has been a little bit inconsistent. It's been really, really good in scrims, so we lost 2 hard points in our last match, but today we won, so it's like, it's kind of like a weird feeling because it's kind of a new team for me. So we're just kind of like trying to get our foot in a bit. And so the series going game 5 for us is actually really good because we get more reps, I feel like. But okay, I think a win is a win. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, at the end of the day, we're going for the win. So game 5, game 4, whatever it is, like, we'll take the win. Obviously, I haven't played with these players. I really didn't even know them. I don't even think I talked to them before I joined this team. But coming in, I mean, they made me super comfortable real quick. We're boys, been hanging out a lot, trying to get some team bonding going. And I feel like I fit right into their system. I think it plays to my strength. I feel like I've been playing way better. And I feel like they also have really, really good communication. That was the main thing for me, is like, they're young guys, so maybe they have like some flaws in communication, but so far I don't think it's been that. So it's been easy for me to, you know, fit in. Well, I think once I was off OpTic, there was really no indication that I was going to play for myself. I wanted to just take some time off, spend time with my family, because my family was coming in town for the major. So sitting it out didn't feel too bad for me because I got some time to reflect on my abysmal qualifiers, or just like stage 2. And, you know, get my mind right, because I feel like that was the main thing, and just have fun with it. I feel like that was like one thing I kind of lost for a bit, is like having fun and competing. So I needed to get that drive back, that, you know, get my mental right, and joining this team with some young guys. They're really fun to be around, so it feels good.
Seems to be a perfect landing spot for you, Kenny. Congrats on the success. 2 round 11s this time, walking away with the dub.
So again, it was those 2 hard points I thought that were really impressive. Boston will, again, there are questions here, because Cammy looked like Cold War Cammy this series. Purge had his moments. Snoopy was good, as he usually always is. Okay, he wasn't good every single map, but that's sometimes how it goes. Again, it's Awakening, bit of a question mark, right? Like, look, I like this Boston team. You guys know that I see them as a bit of a gatekeeper. Like, I think they're solid, but, you know, unspectacular. But I like the team, I like the culture they have, I like the way that they work together. And after stage 1, it was like, well, maybe they could change. After stage 2, it was maybe they could change. But Cammy's really turned it around lately. Of course, Snoopy isn't going anywhere, and it seems like Purge and Snoopy as a sub-combo really do work quite well. Wake, to be fair, had lots of damage this series. I'm not saying it's like clear-cut, oh, they have to, you know, get rid of him or whatever. But, you know, if they were going to do something, it's a conversation that might need to be had. Not like Purge had a good map 1 either, but to be fair, none of them really had good modes or maps in the hard points here. And this, of course, was that Kenny Masterclass on the game 4, before then dropping over 2,000 damage on the game 5. You do not see that very often in Search and Destroy, and especially for Kenny, right? He's not been a good Search and Destroy player for a little bit of time. So Rocker, they get to 100 points. Boston at 120, Miami at 110, Cloud9 still at 95. So that's how things look right now. I guess I can refresh it here, because Thieves have just picked up an extra 10. We'll get to that series in a second as they look to close up on FaZe. Before we get there, FaZe played at Ravens, and And look, this was a real interesting series. The hardpoints for FaZe continue to be pretty hit or miss. The other game modes, undeniable, right? No real surprise. But in the hardpoints, that is where they are vulnerable right now, especially when you've got Drazah doing his best Zoomer impression here and, he nearly gets it. 6 in 24 he was at a point. He then turned it around, got some kills towards the end of the map, so it didn't end completely embarrassingly. But the funny thing is for Drazah, some people, oh man, Drazah, he's terrible, the FaZe guys keep carrying him and all this. The guy, Drazah is such a perfect fit for FaZe. And people that say he gets carried by FaZe, they don't know ball. Because this guy then decided to turn it around and basically do what Zoomer did in that famous series where he did drop the 4 in 23 and just slam the other team for the next 3 maps. So that's what Drazah decided to do. And he finished the series, I think, with the highest KD on his team and in the entire lobby, despite the fact that he started this first map like this. But it was pretty funny, actually, during this whole situation, before we get to the Cellium 1 versus 2, we had Beans obviously on the timeline saying exitlag.com/download, because we know that Beans and Drazah had a bit of a back and forth yesterday on this whole exit lag thing that we talked about this morning, and Beans was like, oh, maybe you need this software if you actually want to shoot back straight, and it turned out that that wasn't really required. This was a big round though in the context of the series, because Ravens took the game 1. FaZe, though, bounced back in the search and destroy. This is one of those rounds that just completely swings the momentum. 1v2, Slasher and Vivid. Cellium's on a 4 spree. And this is just such a trademark Cellium. I feel like I've seen this 1v2 from Cellium a million times on so many different games. He gets Slasher. Vivid isn't quite in position to trade and then gets Gun for 2 HP. So, poorly played by Ravens, really. But Cellium, who else to capitalize on a moment like that? FaZe then slam them in the search. They slam them in the control 3-0. And then they go to a hardpoint, which was actually really competitive down the stretch of it. Ravens brought it back to actually a slight lead. Both of these teams are good at this protocol hardpoint, but in the end it wasn't quite good enough and FaZe get the victory. So yeah, few notable things on this series, of course. We'll have a look at the final scoreboard right about now, just after we see Bean say, oh, I got you, brother, after that big turnaround of the series, of course. I'm sure that Drazah probably did a tweet about this as well, and yeah, he commented on that first map performance that he had, but he still turned it around. Look at that, Drazah with a 1.16. You wouldn't know that he had a stinker map 1, because he massively turned it around after that. Again, Gwinn, he had his moments. People are still going to use his nickname, but that doesn't seem to be going away. Slasher, good damage. Difficult to take away too much of the Ravens here, because, again, they were pretty close to winning both of the hardpoints in this series, and it would have been a game 5, but the other mode's not so good, which is funny, because Ravens, it's been their hardpoint, which has been their weaker modes, but, times change, teams get better at different modes over time. And we had a triple protocol, so I was pretty happy to move on to the next series at this point. It seems like Ravens, though, are holding up reasonably well after the drama. You got to wonder, if Kenny's playing like this on a better team environment that he enjoys, how could he have done on the Ravens had they been able to achieve that move with minus Vivid plus Kenny? Is it going to work out with Vivid and the relationships there? And if you scratch beneath the surface, it's a bit dodgy, maybe. Has he been good for them? He's been okay, but he's not been spectacular. Again, this is why Vivid as a flex is just kind of weird, because Slasher's faster than Vivid in terms of damage and in terms of engagements. It's it doesn't really feel like that's the right way to be. Not saying that it's necessarily Vivid's fault, it's just he's playing a flex role when it's not, it's not really his ideal role. So Ravens have done well this year, given the circumstances, but I understand why they would look to change Vivid out. But of course, they've not done so yet, and maybe they never will. And the final series, honestly, we can keep this relatively brief, because this was LA Thieves just playing some superb cards. And to be honest, watching this series, Surge played pretty well as well, okay, sure, but Thieves were just different class this series. And I think what I find funny about this Thieves team is that when I watch them play, I still think they're the best team in the game. They felt like the best team in the game to me during the qualifiers last stage. They were 7-0. Everyone was getting slammed. They turn up to the major, get beat by Boston, and get knocked out of the tournament by Toronto in dominant fashion. So I'm a bit confused. But then they turn up to the series again today, and they handle business against Surge. It was comfortable in the end. They 3-0'd them after all. What's meant to be a top 2 team, top 3 team in the game. Thieves obviously cementing their legacy online, but that's the critical thing. Online is one thing, LAN is certainly another. And to be fair, with the map 1, it felt like Surge put up a bit of a fight, but really it was a pretty comfortable win, and after that, Thieves just, slapped them aside, really. So, Envoy with a 1.3, HyDra with a 1.15, Scrap with a 1.3. This is what Thieves do. This is what they should do. This is what they should continue to do. My prediction was before this stage, this is finally going to be the stage. We shall see if that turns into reality, but Thieves have certainly started as they mean to go on. So very much true to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.